Hi guys, welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday for Tuesday, August 18th, 2015. This is Jennifer. Today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to show you how I make my super simple pillowcase. Several years ago I learned the Hotdog pillowcase technique. I cannot take credit for inventing it, but I did learn it from a friend. So I wrote a tutorial to give people an easy way to follow to make these super simple pillowcases. Well, since learning how to do it, I've altered it and changed it and tweaked it a little bit, and I wanted to show you some of the variations you could do with this super easy pillowcase technique. So first I'm going to show you the variations, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. This is the original Hotdog pillowcase. This has a flange. The really cool thing about this pillowcase is you can make it for whatever size pillow you want. To make a pillowcase for a standard size pillow, you need a total of a yard of fabric. This piece is going to be, for this one, this is a 24-inch piece, and then this is a 12-inch piece. You can also do this, so this is a 2/3 of a yard and a 1/3 of a yard. You can also do this as a 3/4 of a yard and a 1/4 of a yard. I wouldn't go any smaller than 9 inches on the top, or because you're folding this in half and eventually it'll just get too small and too hard to work with. So this one, which you might recognize from last week, this is a 3/4 of a yard piece of fabric with a 1/4 of a yard. So this is only 9 inches, but it's 9 inches folded in half, which makes a nice 4-inch cuff. So this one does not have a flange. As you can see, this is just a cuff and a body. So it's super versatile. You can really just do whatever you want to make it look like the pillowcase you want to have. Now this one is actually what we're going to be making today. Instead of having a flange, I've created a stripe here. This is totally aesthetic. I did this just so that you would have something to break up this fabric and this fabric. I wanted it to look pretty. That's the only reason I did it. And you can do it, or you can skip that step altogether and make it just like the Doctor Who pillowcase that I showed. So today we're going to be making a standard size pillowcase, so just a regular pillowcase, and we're going to be working with this fabric, which you may remember from a couple of weeks ago. This is actually the sheep fabric that Rainey sent me. You're going to want a 27-inch piece of fabric for the body of your pillowcase, and you're going to want a 9-inch piece of fabric for your the cuff of your pillowcase, and your stripe is 1 1/4 inches. Now when I say 1 1/4 inches, 9 inches, 27 inches, that's by width of fabric. So it's 9 by width of fabric. So 42 to 44 inches, whatever the width of the fabric when it's cut from the bolt, that's how wide you want it to be. And we're actually going to sew along that entire width of fabric. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pillowcase top and the stripe for my pillowcase. I'm going to line this up right sides together along one with the fabric, and I'm going to go ahead and sew these together. I'm not going to show you all the sewing because it's mostly straight line stitching, and you guys know how to do that. If you've got a sewing machine, you can do it with your sewing machine. You can also do this with a serger. I will touch on that a little bit later, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew this stripe on, and you're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've now sewn these together, and then the next thing I'm going to do is just press this open. Super easy, just press it open. So we've got the stripe attached, it's all nice and pressed, and now we're going to do the fun part. So this is the top of your pillowcase, this is your stripe, so this will be your body. If you are working with a directional fabric, see how all my sheep kind of go in the same direction? I want them to be facing up and down on my pillow. I can actually see them through the fabric, so they're right side up when they're facing me, and when I flip them, they will be correct. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to line this up, and I'm just going to put a couple of pins in. It's okay if your ends aren't perfectly straight, you just kind of want them as close as you can match because you're going to trim all that up in a minute. So we're just going to pin a couple of spots. It doesn't have to be perfect because we'll actually repin this in just a second. And this is where the hot dog part comes from. We're going to take the body of the pillowcase, we're going to fold it up, and I actually like to fold it a couple of times. And then you roll it just a little bit, so this becomes your hot dog. And then we are going to take this top here, we're going to go over this roll. We're going to find the ends, make sure the ends match, we're going to make sure the centers match, and then we're going to pin all this together. You're going to have your stripe, you're going to have your hot dog, and you're going to have your top. So it's all pinned. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam from end to end. So we've now stitched this all together. This is our little hot dog bun that I showed you guys before. We've sewn all the way down in a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to birth our hot dog. So you're going to reach into this top part here, and we're going to pull out the body of the pillowcase. So this is just super easy. You're just pulling it right out. It's sort of like turning a tube, but it's easier because it's bigger, and you're just going to keep pulling until the whole thing comes out. So what you have now is the body of your pillowcase attached to the top, and you can see how this is now a stripe. And you have a couple of options here. You can press this and make a nice crease in this. I usually do press it just to make sure that this is really nice and flat. You can top stitch on here or use decorative stitching. And the next thing we're going to do after we press is we're going to trim these in. See how this is not all straight? We want to cut off the selvage. You can see if I can get that, or you can see it. You can see the selvage there. We're going to cut off the selvage. We're just going to make a nice straight cut all the way down so that the ends are both perfectly even. So I folded this together, and I'm going to line these ends up so that I can waste as little fabric as possible. So I'm actually using my mat here to make sure that this is straight. I've already trimmed across the bottom so I know that's straight. And then I will be using the marks on my ruler to make sure that I'm cutting this straight. I'm going to line this up at the bottom, and then I'm just going to trim this right off. Once again, I'm using my mat to make sure that this is straight. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. So at this point you have a couple of choices. If you would like to make a French seam, which is a seam that is entirely encased on the inside of the pillowcase, then you will stitch on the outside with the wrong sides together. If you would like to finish this with your serger, you would put the right sides together and you can just serge all the way around, and it takes just no time at all. I'm going to go ahead and do a French seam because I don't have my serger set up right now. And I will show you guys how to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a few pins in on the corners where the stripe is, just to make sure that everything stays lined up. And then I'm going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam down this side and across the bottom, so just along the raw edges. So I've stitched around all the sides here. Forgot a pen. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim these little corners. I'm just going to snip them off and make sure I leave the stitching intact. That's why I wanted to go ahead and backstitch there, is so that that corner will be locked in place even when I snip the little bit of corner fabric off. Just going to snip that right off. And now the magical part. So we're going to turn this right sides facing, and I do like to press the seams so that you get a really nice crisp seam when you do your French seam. So I'm gonna use my fingers just to get these poked out a little bit. You can use turning stick, but usually just your fingers enough for this because this is just like a single layer of fabric. So get that turned. I'm going to go ahead and press this, and then we'll do our French seams. So I have this pressed, and now I'm going to go ahead and sew all the way around where I have already sewn, but it's going to be right sides facing. We're going to encase that original stitching line, and to do that I like to go about 1/2 inch. So the original was a scant 1/4, we go about 1/2 inch, and that will encase that entire seam all the way around. Got a stitch off, so I'm just going to bring that over a stitch. I did backstitch at the beginning and the end. This pillowcase is now done. And we're going to go ahead and turn this inside out and see what it looks like. First, I want you to see that French seam. See how that's encased completely? Now, if at any point this tutorial does not make sense to you, I do have a written version of this tutorial, an older version that includes the flange. But you could take that same tutorial and you can adapt it and add the stripe, and you could omit the stripe. You can use the same, it's the same exact technique. It's just that one is a photo and text tutorial and this one's video. So if this doesn't make sense, or you know, I went too fast or whatever, then you can just go ahead and do that and get the information that you need. This guy is done. He's complete, and you can see how completely adorable that is. And I'm gonna wash this and put it on my pillow. I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and so I'm a little bit rusty, but I think it went okay. And if you have any questions, be sure and let me know. You can ask me in comments. You can ask me in comments on YouTube, on LiveJournal, or on So Hooked. And that's gonna be it. You guys make a pillowcase and show me yours. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.